Well, it is indeed 5 o'clock, so hello, colleagues. It's great to see everybody here. And we are very honored to have a special group with us here for our Committee of the Whole as well. We have a proclamation on this agenda, which we will get to momentarily. So I'm officially calling this meeting of the Committee of the Whole to order for Monday, April 20th, 2026. Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hess.
Present.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Present.
Commissioner Pradel.
Present.
Commissioner Slaby.
Present.
Commissioner Wilson.
Present.
Vice Mayor Duncan.
Here.
Mayor Anderson.
Here. Thank you, Clerk Borling. Manager Hankins, do you have any communications for us? Not at this time, Mayor. Okie dokie. Thank you for that. Now is the opportunity for public comments. Just as a reminder, the public comment time period at the Committee of the Whole is 2 minutes, and there is an additional public comment period which will occur at our regular business meeting, which is at 7 o'clock this evening. Is there anyone who would like to make a public comment for this meeting? If so, please come forward, state your name, whether you live in the city. See no one. We'll move on from public comments, and now we're to a special agenda item. And this is recognizing the Western Michigan University Dance Team 2026, coming back from their April 12th win in Orlando, Florida. Amazing. And representing, once again, Western Michigan University, and I'd like to thank the city of Kalamazoo as well, in excellence and enthusiasm and hard work, and that's what we're all about. So thank you so much for joining us and honoring us with your presence. So for the process here, we do have a proclamation. I'm going to bring the proclamation down. Commissioner Hess will be reading the proclamation, and I'll ask everybody involved who's part of this effort and accepting the proclamation to come forward here, and we'll gather around the podium.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome, ladies. It's great to see you all here. This is a proclamation honoring the Western Michigan University Dance Team 2026 for the College Classic Division I Jazz National Champions. Whereas the City of Kalamazoo proudly honors the Western Michigan University Dance Team for winning the College Classic Division I Jazz National Championship for the second consecutive year, and whereas the Western Michigan University Dance Team delivered an outstanding performance at its national competition, capturing the College Classic Division I Jazz National Championship, while also earning a third-place finish in the highly competitive Game Day Spirit routine, and whereas, under the leadership of head coach Susan Blount, the team demonstrated exceptional talent, discipline, and spirit, representing Western Michigan University with pride and excellence on the national stage and bringing distinction to the university and the Kalamazoo community. And whereas this remarkable achievement united the campus and community and elevated Western Michigan University Kalamazoo's presence on the national stage. Now, therefore, on behalf of the 56th City Commission and David F. Anderson, Mayor of the City of Kalamazoo, I do hereby proclaim our heartfelt congratulations and admiration to the Western Michigan University dance team for their national championship success and outstanding representation of Bronco pride, excellence, and achievement. Way to go, women!
Hi, I'm Coach Susan Glenn. I just want to say thank you for recognizing this hardworking and deserving team. Back-to-back championships is something I never thought that I would see, and I'm extremely blessed to have done it with this team of athletes. And on behalf of everyone, I just want to say thank you. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stand up behind, and you just arc your way up to here, and you can get some nice pictures, and all the fishing with David as well. So back up nice and close with the trophy. Thank you. Center. Do we need to move anything here? Yes, I will. We'll leave that in. Okay. I'm going to go back up top here then. Make sure you see everyone's face. Thumbs up, team. We all set? Thank you once again. Well, we had talked about doing a small performance before the committee of the whole, but we're not going to do a performance. So I appreciate you being here. Great way to get started. Thank you. Well, Manager Hankins, now we are down to the work session for this evening, so I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. We have several representatives with us this evening from the Western Student Association. WSA is the student government at Western Michigan University, and is directly representing the students enrolled at WMU at University Administration. Luke Kritzman, the student body president. Ian Evans, executive officer for government affairs. And Tate Werdu is the membership chair. So Chief Operating Officer Laura Lamb and I had the opportunity to meet with Luke, Ian, and Tate last week in preparation for tonight's conversation and to begin to identify some specific ways that we can strengthen the partnership between the city and WSA. So we have already identified some next steps and future opportunities to explore, and we're looking forward to the conversations to follow. So thank you, and I'll turn it over to Luke to start us out.
Warm welcome. Nice to have you here.
Thank you for inviting us. I'm actually going to kind of turn it over to Ian to talk first because, I mean, I'm student body president, but he was kind of the big one in helping coordinate all of this and getting us here today. But just on behalf of the Western Student Association and the entire student body, thank you for allowing us to do this. This is a great experience and opportunity, and I'm hoping that we can continue having partnerships together. But I'm going to turn it over to Ian now to lead us on.
Yeah, so my name is Ian. I'm our Executive Officer for Governmental Affairs, and so it is my job to manage all of student relations with government and represent students' interests, both with our Office of Government Relations and in how we talk with public officials and how we run events. You were all invited to Dinner with Delegates this year. That was an event that I ran, and I want to say thank you to all of you that came. I hope you can make it next year. We have a presentation for you all to share. But in the meantime, we also have other representatives from the student government here. We have our Speaker of the Assembly next year, Jillian Kissel. We have our current head of committees, Emma Hall. We have an academic chair, Paige Lance. And then we have Kaden Jarsma, our Chief of Executive Operations. And then we have an Assistant Director for Marketing and Outreach, Mags Gose. All right, so thank you so much for this opportunity, and we just wanted to start with just some facts on the value that Western provides to the city of Kalamazoo. So we provide a huge economic impact to the city. There is a study done a couple years ago that showed that we provide $1.6 billion of value across the three-county area. And then we also want to highlight the community service. We just heard from the dance team. They provide 15 hours of service each among their entire year. And so they are at, just their team, 360 hours of community service. Athletics as a whole is at 7,248 hours of service so far this year. Greek life is at 26,000. Last year, they performed 26,110 hours of service. And then our honors college on Western's campus this year will provide 46,080 hours of community service. It's something that is invaluable to this community. We also provide lots of cultural opportunities. I mean, the Bronco community is very strong within here. We bring championships and everything back to Kalamazoo, and it's a great community to be part of, and we're proud to represent it, and we think we do it well. And today we're here because we want to actually grow the partnership with the city and form a lasting one. Lots of times we come in every couple years just to present every once in a while, and we want to actually build a lasting relationship. We don't want to say hi every once in a while and then completely disappear. We think these shared partnerships are very, very important. And we'd also love to provide insight on how the city of Kalamazoo can help students and how WMU students can help the city of Kalamazoo in return. So we have three big asks for you, and for this first one, I'm going to turn it back over to Luke to talk about pedestrian safety.
Yes, so there's been some big issues that have been affecting the student body at Western, and a lot of it is kind of the off-campus safety, kind of in very student-centered housing, like the Fraternity Village area and the Arcadia neighborhood. And so we're coming to talk about possibly supporting potential safety initiatives as are outlined in the Kalamazoo Safety Action Plan. And so there's been a history of past partnerships with the Western Student Association and the City of Kalamazoo in updating kind of safety features, like the barriers across the street from the CVS right off campus has been an issue when a student was hit and killed by a car. That was put up through a student movement and in tandem with the city, as well as just better lighting and other just kind of slowing down traffic off campus. That has been a big thing that the city has done that also benefits the students in turn. And so we were kind of back because we've been having more of these issues, especially in these large student-centered places. There's been an uptick of police calls in really kind of social areas affecting the nightlife of students, mainly in our fraternity areas. I had the opportunity to speak with a couple of you guys a couple months ago, specifically Drew Duncan, at our Dinner with Delegates event, and we were kind of going back and forth on what kind of safety features to look at and working within the system too. And so some of the things that our Greek Life specifically has done is now they're utilizing, it's an app called Door List, which keeps track of every single person that is coming in and out of parties so that they know exactly who is in their social spaces at any time. So if an issue does arise, that they will know who is there. But still, there have been just a general feeling of being unsafe off campus, given the history of what we have seen in the past really year. Because off campus, the fraternities and Greek life area has seen 10 times the amount of police calls to that area than they have seen in previous years. Most of them, granted, are noise complaints. There are some neighbors that think that they're a little too rowdy, but there has been an uptick in guns being pulled and fights happening at parties, and just having better infrastructure off campus could help to deter some of that. And so we have had a history of adding lighting, speed bumps, stop signs, and better sidewalks, and that's something that we think should continue through the city of Kalamazoo just to better support the over 16,000 students that reside at Western and call this place our home. And so moving off of that, we also kind of want to see the commission's support in expediting implementation of the safety action plan projects near campus, which we'll have on the next slide. And so this is just kind of a screen grab from part of this plan that we think is a phenomenal idea. It's just better allowing for students to travel from on and off campus, because many of these students off campus also live without a car. So their primary mode of transportation is walking back and forth from campus. And these roads are 4 lanes, 5 lanes in spots, and it's very trafficked. There's a lot of speeding cars. And so any things that we can do to help benefit pedestrian safety benefits everyone as a whole. And yes, so I think I had another point, but then I'm like, I'm getting kind of nervous up here. It's my first time in here, I'm sorry. But yes, so we're just kind of asking for your support. We have meetings set up, or we are setting up more meetings to talk more with faculty, or to talk more with staff about how these plans can be introduced, but we are just kind of bringing it so that we can get some support from you guys and just kind of let you know what we are up to. But thank you.
And then our next ask is about what forming an ongoing partnership looks like to us, and I'll let Tate speak to that.
Yeah, so, sorry. Part of having an ongoing partnership is being in continuous conversation, and in that we want to show our dedication and our side of things. So we plan on next year and every year afterwards sending a student delegate to city commission meetings. So we have someone here committed to hearing all that you guys have going on, and if we have comments we need to share with you guys, or we think you guys might benefit in knowing, we can communicate with you guys at those. And then as an ask, we are hoping that there can be a designated student liaison in the city. A lot of students, this is their first time living independently. You know, in a city of 70,000, I think there are 17,000 students total, including Kalamazoo College and KVCC. And it's a lot to figure out, you know, connecting and interacting with the city. We had a really great meeting with Manager Hankins and COO Laura Lamb, where they offered to help us figure some of that out. But if there was a designated person to go, hey, if you're a student with a question, come here first and we can point you in the right direction, even if we specifically don't have the answer, that would benefit students a lot in being able to interact with the city about things like parking, safety, renting, landlord issues, you know, a whole laundry list of things. And then, not quite on this slide, but we also want to make sure you guys can connect with us, regardless of the fact that, you know, being a student is something of a transient state. You know, we don't just want a relationship with the 3 people standing here and the wonderful people in the audience, but with the collective student body and our positions. So we want to make sure that there's some more solid ground as far as if you guys have questions you have and you want student input on, we can send you in the right direction, whether it's an email, whoever has our positions in the future. Yeah, thank you.
And then our final ask, I think, is the best one, and is the one I'm most excited about. We would love to ask you guys as city commissioners and as the city manager to join an aspirational project working group. We would love to put together for a future budget a proposal for the Kalamazoo Foundation for Excellence. We think that that would be a great way to really show that we're committed to a partnership, and we would love to do something that is tangible and will benefit students. Our main goal in this is that we want to help connect WMU campus to downtown. We know that there feels like a disconnect, and we would love to help bridge that gap, especially with the new event center that is coming downtown. And so we have tons of ideas, just to throw around a few, like a pathway all the way from campus that's well lit and covered in student and faculty art, or student housing downtown, or student lounge downtown. Just anything that can really get students downtown. But the whole point is we would like you guys to join a working group with us, with students, to put together this ask so that we can help make our community better together. And so it's pretty simple, but I think it's the thing that has the most potential, and I'm really excited, and I hope that you consider that and that you say yes so that we can build something for the city and for students. And so we just have a slide just in summary of our main things that we're asking for: support pedestrian safety around our campus, help us form a lasting partnership with you guys that will last way beyond us and start on a great, amazing, large project now to make our community and our school better and to connect downtown to Western Michigan.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate that. Questions, commissioners? Commissioner Hess.
I love this. Thank you for being here, WSA and all students. As Vice President Brenneman knows, and Mayor, and probably everybody up here, I believe that Kalamazoo itself is an education city. It is the place where you can become your best self. Regardless of where you are or where you begin, you could become a best and a better self in Kalamazoo. We have a wonderful institution in Western Michigan where students enroll, and with such a partnership as you provide, as you describe, I so think that we could make it that much better. A few things that I've written up here. Yeah, I'll be a part of that working group. I volunteer to do that. I was part of a group, I think it was probably like 2 years ago, where it was biking for safety, where we biked that whole Fraternity Village area and then got together and made some, I don't know where that went, but the plan was to do this very intersection and corner and make it a whole lot safer. So I don't know where that is at this point, but I agree with you, and I think we need to make that intersection much safer for pedestrians and bikers. I have a question for our public safety. I don't know if they're here yet, but public safety, and you may be able to answer this, Manager Hankins, but on campus, is your public safety, is Western Public Safety, right? Is a Western Public Safety Department.
Right.
But off campus, it's us, right? And I think that we were at your house crawl this weekend, I think. I think we helped with that. But I think they work together. So I was just wondering if we have a CPO, a community policing officer for the neighborhoods around Western, and if they can be involved with this working group as well, that might be a good idea. I also am very excited about the moral courage. I don't know if you've heard about that. The moral courage training that's coming to Western Michigan University, to have Irshad Manji, who is a renowned DEI expert and training leader, train folks in athletics, and Promise Scholars to be the leaders in helping to get the word out and to train all the students at Western Michigan University. So I love the fact that we're doing that. I don't know if I have questions for you. It's just that, can I be on your working group? I really want to do that. I think I think the future is you. And we don't want you just here for 4 years. We want you to claim this as your city. We want you to stay here. We want you to continue to claim Kalamazoo as your home. There's a lot of people up here and out there who came to Kalamazoo, go to school, and they why would I leave? That's what my son told me, like, Mom, why would I leave Kalamazoo? I love it here. So we want you to stay, and the more connected you feel, and the easier it is to get around and the safer you feel, I just feel like we can do that. So thank you for coming here. Would love to have your representatives come on a regular basis and report what Western is doing. And I, for one, appreciate being invited to the dinner with delegates and all of the special events that are happening at Western. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Hess. Other comments or questions, Commissioners? Commissioner Slaby.
Thank you for the presentation. I really enjoyed Dinner with Delegates, too. I thought it was really well ran, and I thought both the delegates and the students got a lot out of it. So thank you for putting that together. I hear you on the pedestrian safety. I myself, when talking with students over the last few years, that Lovell Trail along Stadium Drive is, the most scary, as people say, right? And so, as someone who doesn't walk that, a lot, I'm like, oh, okay, all right, maybe we can put some lights up. But I had to walk from kind of University Roadhouse area to downtown one night, and we were walking along this trail, and I said, oh no, like, I don't want to do it. So I think that that could be an amazing project that seems so simple, such an easy lift, right? Because we're talking about, you know, cutting brush back, putting some lights. The trail's pretty, I think, well, in good condition. So it's just making sure it's welcoming and vibrant and safe all hours of the day and night for people to feel like they can walk along it. So I'm in full support of supporting something like that sooner than later. Even in the meantime, as we await the Stadium Drive kind of reboot when we reconstruct that area. I did want to bring up, though, you know, I know when I worked for the city, I worked with the Office of Government Relations over at Western and pointed out that we had that blank space in such an amazing, beautiful new student center that could be leveraged as a spot to be attractive, vibrant space that held resources for the city. Unfortunately, the city denied funding to make it happen, and so Discover Kalamazoo came in place, and it's really outstanding with a beautiful mural and everything. Really wish we could have gotten on that. But the idea was, could we potentially have 311, like a liaison from there on Fridays, or the neighborhood activator there on Friday, or whatever day, you know, you don't have classes on Friday, and maybe you're not even just on campus on Friday. But was the thought of having some kind of navigator there to not just have you look through brochures, but actually walk you through things that might come up living off campus or just wanting to enjoy things off campus. So I would be in full support of the city actually getting on that and working with Discover Kalamazoo or other groups to make that a lot more interactive. Totally there with you. Because as Commissioner Hess did say, you know, I want to see you guys choose Kalamazoo after your 4 years, right? And the only way you're going to do that is if you can feel like you can set up shop here, get a good job, buy a house, and, you know, do whatever you want to do after that. So, yeah, thanks for your presentation. I love the idea of someone coming. I don't know if you want to do it every other Monday, my God, but if you want to, you're more than welcome. So, you know, would love to learn more about the working group and what you expect out of it and the cadence of that, and see how we can work together.
Thank you, Commissioner Slaby. Other comments or questions, commissioners? Vice Mayor Duncan.
Thank you guys for coming today. Congratulations on your reelection. Thank you for bringing this to the attention, and thank you for doing the work on your end and how you can be safer. The roster of the parties, we talked about that, Luke, and how important it was when I was in college, when we would have extracurricular activities outside of class, how important it was if, you know, public safety showed up to be able to articulate who had been in the building. If you're worried about gunshots, if you're worried about guns, you know, you got to know who you're letting into, you know, your parties. You got to know who's in the building. Or you, as students, have made the first step of unsafety, right? Like you're allowing people around you that you don't know. So obviously I support this. Let me know when the group starts. I'd love to be a part of it, but extremely proud of the work. Thank you guys for coming out and caring about your city and your school.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Duncan. Commissioner Pradel.
Yeah, thank you all for being here. It's really awesome that you're insisting on this engagement, and I think it's critically important. We've gone quite a few years where it has not happened, and I think it was largely stemmed from the pandemic and whatnot, but it's so great to be just face-to-face with y'all, and I really hope we get a chance to do the same thing with some of our other institutions in Kalamazoo, including K College, KVCC as well, because I think there's unique perspectives to be had with those individuals as well. I just want to also mention, just don't underestimate the power and impact that y'all can have in terms of needed changes. A lot of the changes that you mentioned in Fraternity Village and that intersection happened a lot faster than I sometimes see happen at the city level. And I remember seeing petition signatures signed in form from folks. You know, it was really powerful to see students come forward and really mobilize and try to advocate for those changes, because I really do believe those are making a significant instance. Your Dean of Students, and I believe is still the same Dean of Students at Western. I think I've shared this story before, but I was so profoundly moved. We were at a Western event, and she came up to me afterwards and said, thank you so much for taking this seriously, because, I don't know if you know this or not, but when a student loses their life or they're injured, I'm often the individual who's the representative from the university that contacts their families and their parents. And so, for her, that was a very real impact, right? Because she knew that these steps are really meant to save lives and prevent injury, and it's so critically important. And I think one of the most important things that I know I would think about going to school as a student today is like, are my kids safe? Am I feel safe as a student? And it's not just about gun violence in a community. It also involves non-motorized pedestrian, bicycling safety as well. Those are all critically important things to consider as well. And so I really want to thank you all for your predecessors and all your work for continuing to advocate for this work and continue to encourage you to do so. Also, I really appreciate, just the opportunity to hear from folks by, email once in a while too. Don't be afraid to reach out to us by phone or send us a message once in a while if you just have something on your mind. You don't have to wait till there's a meeting that happens or some formal occasion to share what's on your mind. I just could be at 2 in the morning and you think of something. I just want to encourage you to reach out to us. And one really easy way you can do that is if you just email City Commission, all one word, at kalamazooCity.org. It's kind of a little, it shouldn't be a hack. I mean, I think most people know about it or are learning more about it. But if you email that, it goes to all 7 of us, so that you can make sure that all of us get it as well. So thank you for being here. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Other comments or questions, commissioners? All right, Commissioner Hess.
Not a question. It's more of a request of Manager Hankins and COO Lamb to, like Chris suggested, add K and KVCC to that working group and get the education folks. I don't know if you're willing to do that, if you just want to keep it Western. But to get all the students together that share this community, as part of, as their classroom, We have a lot that you could study. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hess. Well, just a couple things here. So just a fair warning, I know this is a time of transition. Of course, in some ways, much of life is a transition. It seems more defined when you're in college, I guess, but that doesn't end. But just a warning as far as transition or where you may think about going, there are, members of this commission who were at one time the Western Student Association presidents. So look out, could happen to you. And as a matter of fact, a previous commissioner who is now a state senator and is in the process of running for the U.S. House of Representatives right now, also, I'm sure you're aware, was president of the Western Student Association at one time. So just be careful. This may be setting the stage for more things for you here. But I also want to make a comment more for all of us, and I don't want to drag this out too far, but I want to talk a little bit about the 1920s, the very early 1920s, which many people think I was around for that. I don't stretch back quite that far, but sometimes things are the way they are and you just think it was always that way, or just it happened as an accident. And just a reminder for us now in this time is that when Western Normal School, which I think was the original name for Western Michigan University, was authorized by the legislature here in Michigan, you probably remember 28 communities competed for the location of Western Normal School, 28 communities. And some communities that are bigger than us, Grand Rapids, for example, was one of those communities, a variety of communities. It could have gone anywhere. Kalamazoo would not be the Kalamazoo it is without Western Michigan University here. So I really appreciate the discussion about how interconnected and intertwined we are. At that time, people related to the newspapers here in Kalamazoo really advocated for Western to be here. And as a matter of fact, borrowed a bunch of money, passed a bond, $70,000 to invest in and create the campus here, which is right up where Heritage Hall is. And another reminder that I think it was Olmsted, but the landscape architects that originally designed that location were the same architects that were involved in designing Central Park in New York. So a lot of interesting connections there, but had it not been for, I would say, forward-looking people who I think never could have imagined, 100 years later, what the effect of actually having this important institution here in Kalamazoo. Spent some time, spent some money, and literally won a contest to have Kalamazoo be the location. So it is time to, 100 years later, double down on that, do some things together that I think once again, solidifies the importance of that relationship. And I think this is, once again, now maybe a beginning conversation of how we could do that together. So thank you so much for caring and being here. I appreciate it very much, and I look forward to what comes out of this. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Manager Hankins.
Mayor, I'll handle the next presentation to the community as a whole, to you all. So I'm going to step down to the podium.
Okay.
All right. Mayor, am I on?
It's on. Okay.
All right. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the Commission, Malcolm Hankins, City Manager, thank you for this opportunity. Imagine a community where the residents in our community not only get their needs met and get served, but they feel engaged and connected to how decisions are made that affect them. At the retreat a little while ago, we heard that that's the exact kind of community that we could have here in Kalamazoo. We believe it. And so tonight, this evening, I'm going to walk you through some of the feedback from that retreat and tell you what I believe we heard you say to us and how we're going to use that input that you shared. Can I move this forward myself? All right. So, a few takeaways. We're going to talk about what we heard. And, while there's alignment around priorities, which we did hear, there are opportunities for us to do a little bit more work and make sure that we're giving you the information that you need to make decisions. One of the key takeaways that I took from this was that there's a commitment to excellence in service. We heard you clearly that you want to prioritize how we do business as a city. One of the other things we heard is that you want it to be measurable and accountable. And so I'll talk through this presentation about how we expect to weave in the opportunities so that you know that we're not just doing pie in the sky suggestions, but that you see the connection between what we're asking and telling you that we're intending to do and getting your feedback along the way, and how we intend to be measured in doing those things. I'll show you in this process where you still have touch points. So this is not us coming to tell you how we plan to do business without hearing from you to get your feedback. And so we heard a lot from you. We heard from the commission during the retreat, but we also received your surveys. And so we want to share with you kind of how that all came together and what comes next. We can't do this work and be accountable to the work without having some measurable outcomes. And so we intend to not only take the vision that you've given us with the goals that you've given us at that high level and give you some of the outcomes that we believe can help us to achieve those, but we're going to talk with you about the strategies that we're working through. You'll see towards the end of the presentation that I'll share with you some of the conversations we're going to have internally to first kind of dig deeper from an operational standpoint into how we do business so that we can actually come back to you with something that's real. We don't want to just give you pie in the sky stuff. We want to tell you what we think we can achieve and also give you some of the things that might be able to be achieved with different resources. We'll talk about the strategies and the measures. So during the retreat, one of the things that caught my attention is that there was alignment between what you believed individually how you operate collectively, and some of the vision that I had based on what I've heard you tell me you want to see in the city. And so some of it's before you. People build community, leaders of kindness, and education as a superpower. So those are things that if we go through some of the other information that we received throughout the retreat, there's alignment along those things. And then when you look at our governing together, you want participatory engagement. You want people in the community to feel like they have a say in how they're governed. And so I appreciate that as well. And then you want excellence in how we do business in the city, which the staff, when we've talked about this, we've been excited about the opportunity to get into doing the business of governing the work that we do. Not governance, that's your space, but to get into the business of doing the good work that governments do, that people in our community expect us to do. So a few takeaways. First, you got to hear a little bit about the process we're in with IK 2035. We had a discussion, and you provided some survey input. Thank you for that. And with that survey input, we were able to pull together the priorities that you have as a body. You also took a look at our vision statement. And what we found, which was not a surprise, is that there was alignment and agreement around the vision that you have for this city. In 2035, all Kalamazoo neighborhoods are supported by sustainable, responsive, accessible services that lift people up and bring our community together at every stage of life. I do want you to know that we did get input about different language. We talked through that input, and collectively, we did have an alternative conversation we wanted to present to you. But again, I want to go back to the previous slide to first say that there were a majority of you all who agreed with this vision statement. So that you're aware that we take your input seriously, here's the language that could appear if we were to consider the different input that we received. So I'll ask you to kind of give me your nod on what you were thinking about this one and the commission revision that's on the right. Yes.
Well, I want to really thank my colleagues, because I'm someone in the survey that said, I'm good with the vision statement. Not about these goals, but vision statement was great. And so it appears that my colleagues shared some really great revisions that, looking through, I'm like, this is even better, what? So I appreciate that we are a governing body of several, because I think this is a clear example of how many perspectives help evolve into an even better outcome, right? So than what was initially presented. So I actually really appreciate the revisions to the vision statement and would support that newly proposed one.
And again, you know, it wasn't the intent or goal to necessarily have you all have a wordsmithing session perhaps, but I do want you to kind of give us a sense of whether or not the vision is kind of headed in the right direction of where you believe you want to see the city. So we'll have another opportunity to ponder a little bit of that. So we also got down to your strategic goal priority areas. And, you know, all of these goals are important. We realize that. There were 8 goals that were identified. So we understand that this is not a weighted comparison, but we're saying that these are 5 priority areas that you all have said are important for us to be looking at right now. And so when we looked at it, the excitement that came to me was that you wanted to have a city organization that was highly effective. You wanted us to be operationally sound. And that's the space that we as staff work in. So, excuse me, that's foundational. It was ranked as number 1 by at least 4 of you. And it also, you gave us some anecdotes to take with us, conversations about customer service, input about 311, things that matter to you, things that you've heard from community, which fit right into this area that we're talking about. Multiple commissioners framed operations as an enabler of everything else that follows. So this was the foundational feedback that we received. Community trust and safety was also high on your list. From the survey feedback, it was noted that trust may be better suited under different areas, perhaps under effective city operations, and I can see that as well. My take on it is I think trust is kind of a universal theme that flows through this as well. So we have to be able to build trust. Effective city operations can do that, but we can also do that by transparency, doing what we're saying we're going to do, and delivering the types of services that the people expect from us. Housing was ranked #1 by 3 of you, and what that meant to us is that there was, again, alignment with Keys to Kalamazoo and the work that we're doing with the COC. And in the retreat summary, there was language in that around deep affordability. I think that was some terminology that we picked up on. So we're doing the work that's important to you all and the community, and we believe we can align our work around these kinds of feedback points. Economic vitality came in next. Strong consensus supporting small businesses and reducing the barriers to development. So again, there's going to be some interplay between these different objectives. Barriers to development might readily tie in under effective city operations as well. And then finally, youth and family, always a high priority. There were suggestions around creating positive outlets for youth so that our youth in our community have options other than just being in a space with nothing to do. And there was also some advocacy around second-gen models, which I believe is still something that we support as an organization, and we will continue to do so. These are priorities that we took from the conversation, and thank you all for giving us an opportunity to hear from you in this way. So we did have an opportunity to go through some of our strategic goals, and on the right of this particular slide, you will see that we have the guiding principles that kind of flow into all the strategic goals that we have. And those guiding principles touch every one of these, and I think what's important here is that you all gave us some language, and I have some more detailed, track changes kind of things. If you're interested in that, I didn't think you want to necessarily go through that level of detail at this presentation, but we do have that available if you're interested. But we weren't far off from what you gave us as input as far as language goes on these guiding principles and the strategic goals that come from that. So this is the result of about 18 months of community engagement and now the retreat input that you shared with us as well. Here are the guiding principles, which you all are familiar with. Sustainability, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. Economic mobility, operational excellence, still there, and continuous engagement. I said at the early part of the presentation that we don't get to do this and just say we did it. We have to demonstrate that we actually produced, and we can tell you how we determined that we did produce. And so this is not a final example of a current SMART goal, but in prior retreat exercises, we've come down with a goal that the commission helped to guide to us, measurable outcomes, again, with the commission's input, and then implementation strategies that go into a little more detail, and finally, measures that show outcomes as a result of the work. The only thing that I see that's not as detailed in the example that's before you is that there is not a time associated with this, which we would be intentional about providing to you all. And so, yes.
So if you could quickly help me understand before we move on. So we just went through previous slide. There's 8 goals. One I would think is kind of connected to what you just shared with us in that chart was community trust and safety. So if we go to the next one, sorry, I don't really know what we're looking at here, because this says something completely different. This says safe community, creating a safe environment for living, working, and playing. So that is not what was previously on the goal. So I'm not sure if this is a goal or a sub-goal, and I'm not sure what we really are supposed to be taking away from this chart. Could you
Sure.
kind of walk us through that?
Sure, I'll set it up a little better. I didn't set it up as well. This is not a current goal or anything that's tied to anything I presented specifically to you this time. This is a prior commission retreat result, and this is the way it was framed. It's showing you the way that this has been presented historically. So this is for reference, not to be construed with anything that's in front of you for future consideration. What I was sharing with you is that we've somewhat done this before. The thing that we will add to this is that we will add time so that we know when we're supposed to achieve those things. And if you will allow, as I get through the presentation, I'll show you where you still have a voice throughout this process to weigh in on those strategies. So we're not just kind of in our camp as city staff sitting on the side and then coming back and saying, here it is. We're going to come back to you, and I'll be able to communicate that with you in a few more slides to show you how that's going to happen. Okay. So here's our IK 2035 plan alignment. We've done the engagement process, the visioning process. We're working through the strategic vision plan, and as you see how all the plans align together, the master plan comes out of this, and citywide area plans come out of it as well. To the right, in the more taupe or peach-looking color, and I didn't choose the colors, by the way. That gets into the operational work that staff will be doing to create true government strategy documents. So that's a bit in the weeds. And so we're going to be talking about how to make the vision that you've given us real and how we can pull that together. And then we'll have department plans that get down to every department's responsibilities to act on the things that tie up to the vision that you set at the highest level. So many of you have probably seen this slide before. This is just a point of contact reference to the engagement that's happened in IK 2035 to this point, over 4,000 points of contact, a number of participants that have interacted with Imagine Kalamazoo and are still interacting with Imagine Kalamazoo. Some of these folks, we've made intentional efforts to reach folks who have typically perhaps not been reached in processes like this, so I appreciate staff's effort to respond to that request. And so you'll continue to see how IK 2035 is touching a variety of new people. And so here's our next steps process for you. A little bit of this goes back to, the Imagine It phase. I won't go into every aspect of that because I think we've all heard that a few times. But getting to what appears to be red on your slide, your retreat was in March. We're going to give you a Design It, IK 2035 Design It report out in May, God willing. There will be a staff retreat, and in that staff retreat, which I may have to amend the date because there's a certain anniversary I'm familiar with, that staff retreat will deal with the staff getting together and getting into the deeper dive of our operations and to discuss how we can develop SMART goals that align with the high vision goals that you shared with us. To be frank, I know in government there's a lot of data that comes in, but in my experience, there's not enough analytics around the data that we receive. So we take in quite a bit of information, but we don't always have the pulse for how to use that to the benefit of doing smart things with it. And so I've seen a lot of goals in my day. I've seen a lot of data. I'm interested in taking it and making meaningful connections with the vision that you have. And so that's why we're going to spend some time in a retreat with staff to walk through that. You've given us the course. You've given us the course to chart, and we appreciate that. We will have in July or August, somewhere around that time, a commission report out that will give you, again, a touch point to weigh in on the strategies and measurable goals that we'll be setting forth for your consideration. And so you're still in the mix. And then from that, we'll continue with our draft strategic vision. the master plan towards adopting the strategic vision and the master plan. So I think that's process timeline. There is a tie-in with the budget. Obviously, we want to do this because we want to make all these things matter. You can't have a plan without resources to deliver the plan. So what we're trying to do is get your vision, which we've gotten, tie in your vision to the strategies that we'll bring back to you for consideration, and then have those conversations about the resources needed to implement those things. And when there are tough conversations that need to be held, we want to bring those to you to say, hey, we have a choice in the mix. I hear you. These are the priorities we've heard from you. This is what it'll take to get that done. And so the timeline here is just an additive thing that tells you when our budget is finalized for my review in August. Let me back up again. In July, we will have special requests that come in from the departments, and our staff will be prioritizing their special requests based on the priority goals that you've already demonstrated are important to you. And so we'll be using that to start our process. We'll approve those requests in September with the hope of implementing our release of our budget in late October to November. Questions?
First of all, thank you very much, Manager Hankins. Hope it feels okay on that side of the dais, looking up as we look like a friendly group to you, I hope. So,
Yeah.
Good.
Well, you did all right. It was
All right. Questions, thoughts, feedback for this, I would say, kind of early stage steps in this whole process? Commissioner Slaby.
Thank you, Mayor. This really, for me, what I surmised from seeing this on the agenda was that this was an extension of our previous conversation at the retreat, for us to continue that conversation on the feedback presented in the survey that we took, and to have that dialogue amongst ourselves. And so for me, with taking the survey to provide additional feedback on what was presented to us at the retreat, and now hearing this presentation from City Manager Hankins, for me, I still feel like we're at least not looking at the thing that I had lifted up, which was we have a strategic vision that has high-level goals. And as part of the master plan, as part of the initiative to create a strategic vision and those high-level goals, that is our responsibility as a city commission. And so what I had advocated for at the retreat, that I'll continue to advocate for, is that those high-level goals are SMART goals themselves, that then help us guide what we would like to see our city manager work with his staff on achieving. So I want to just clarify some things, both for the audience and then maybe even for my fellow colleagues, is that there's our strategic vision that's accompanied with these goals, these 8 goals that have been proposed to us, right? And I believe those goals should be SMART, okay? And then that is the what. So as a governing body, we are the ones that decide, what is what we want, like what do we want it to look like, what is the vision, right? And then based on that what, city staff figures out the how. How do we get to that what? And the how piece, of course, comes with specific strategies and their own goals tied to those strategies to be able to achieve those strategies. And those are operational goals. I think it's important for us to understand that, the setting of those operational goals should also be SMART, and should be done by the city manager with his office and department heads. And we should not be involved in dictating those. And so that's why I think it's so important for us in our role when we are doing what we're supposed to be doing, which is setting the strategic vision and its high-level goals, is to ensure that the goals we're setting, that we have a responsibility to set, are also SMART. And that those SMART goals are guiding ultimately what they decide to do as far as operational strategies and the goals tied to that, which should probably also be SMART as well. So I say that because I still feel like we're glossing over this idea that we're stuck with these high-level goals, even though it's our responsibility to be the ones to set these. and have them as written, and then resort to just simply having those operational strategies be SMART. And so I think there's a real opportunity, not today, but an opportunity for us as a commission, as the governing body that's responsible for setting the strategic vision and its goals, for us to have that conversation about what SMART goals look like at this level. I'll just close this initial point by saying that I think that, and I mentioned this in the survey, is it's hard for me to provide, I have thoughts, I have examples I could share, but I can't tell you specifically what I would like to see in the SMART goals until we are actually provided existing conditions of the city. You know, I don't know where we are with employer base. I don't know what the average income is for the city. Like, I don't know those things, so I can't begin to tell you what I think we should increase it by or reduce something by, because we don't have access to that data, which I think could be pulled together by various sources and presented to us, so we have a better understanding what the state of the city actually is. And that, to me, I think would make us all confident, more confident and comfortable in having that dialogue around what could SMART strategic goals look like. But until then, I agree, it is hard to know exactly what we want to say. But, you know, I mean, for example, you know, could a SMART goal for housing look like by 2035, increase housing stability and access, including percentage, blank percent increase, right? Maybe it's 20%, maybe it's 10%. Increase in home ownership by current renters, retaining, you know, home ownership for, you know, at least 3 to 5 years, right? Could that be what we set as the North Star when it comes to housing? And then when it comes to the city manager delegating that to his staff and figuring how they actually achieve that, there could be a multitude of different strategies that they employ to do that, right? It's not our job to necessarily tell them which strategies. It's, you know, it's for them to figure that out and then report back to us to say, okay, yeah, we did strategy A, B, and C. B didn't really work out, but C put a dent in that strategic goal that you've set for us for 10% or 20%. For me, what I'm struggling with in presenting an example of this is, I don't know if it should be 20% increase or 20% increase or 30% increase, because I don't even know where we're at as a baseline. And I think that data is somewhere, and if that could be provided to us, we could have a better, more productive conversation. But that's where I'm stuck at, and I really strongly believe we need to move into that direction for IK 2035, where we're setting SMART goals, not just at the operational level, but at the strategic top.
Thank you, Commissioner Slaby. Other thoughts or questions? Vice Mayor Duncan.
SMART streets. Does the public still have the opportunity to engage in that process?
Vice Mayor, I can never tell if you can hear me. Can you hear me? If by engagement in the process you mean weighing in on the actual implementation of it, I would actually have to check with staff to make sure that I could answer that accurately. Don't know exactly where we are in the process, but I can definitely get an answer back to you.
When will I have that answer?
Just give me this week.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Hess.
Are you talking about downtown smart streets or smart streets everywhere?
Downtown particularly. We just did a coffee and civics with Southwest Michigan First, and almost every single person I talked to me about the bike lanes in the downtown streets.
Sure. Because I was going to ask you, Manager Hankins, about the coming up here from April 28th to May 1st. Are you going to reference that in any of your comments later tonight? Because that's a huge time for people to engage in the streets and what's going on in downtown Kalamazoo for IK 2035. So all of the events that have come out that are available from the April 28th through the first Art Hop, and then a lot of different events, I would encourage all those folks, and for Southwest Michigan First, to put that information out there.
And it's in my manager's report too as well. Thank you for bringing that up.
Commissioner Wilson?
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Manager Hankins, for this presentation. I had a question. So initially, I was, similar to Commissioner Slaby, I was a little unnerved by the high level of, our contribution on the goals level, but now it sounds like we'll be able to weigh in, and there's some sort of feedback loop with the SMART goals that will eventually be created. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then to Commissioner Slaby's point, obviously these goals will be backed by data. Would we be able to kind of see the basis of your guys' determinations, to Commissioner Slaby's point, get some of that information that to understand why those are the goals?
Yeah, we should be able to tell you that it's based on data and show you that. Yeah.
Thanks.
Commissioner Brady?
Sure. Thank you, Manager Hankins, for your presentation as well. And I appreciate just the visual of seeing how it kind of coalesced to getting to those top 5 and showing us, I guess the proof of like where that was coming from or drawn from. I guess my question, as you are working with the team with the retreat and on developing the SMART goals, I would imagine that there are a number of baseline items that you might be using, and some may have more concrete data than others, but some of I'll just use housing as an example. So for housing, we have a Kalamazoo County housing plan that's still in progress that shows exactly how many units of housing we need at each level to meet the demands of our community. We have a consolidated plan that we've approved as a commission, which provides more analysis more at the city level. We also have work that's been done by W. Upjohn Institute. I could go on with those as well. But can you explain with us, like hearing the concern from Commissioner Slaby, how do those existing documents that outline kind of like the baseline, even if they might be a year or two back, to use your determination about how to develop those SMART goals? So taking the broad, saying, hey,
Sure.
Housing is a priority, and how
Yes, how it makes sense. First, I have to credit staff who are already operationally involved in all of these spaces. So as much as there are plans out there, there are folks who are actually doing the work, and they probably already have a set of operational goals that are smart to measure things that we don't talk about a lot.
Right.
So that's there. Certainly, plans that we've had, we will tie into those. Not just that, feedback that we've received from customer satisfaction surveys, all those kinds of things come into play. We don't have to generate new ideas when we've heard from various sources about priorities and data points. What I'll share with you is that there are a lot of folks who are working in the space. Housing is a good example. Is that our goal, to increase home ownership as a city, meaning city operations? It could be a goal for our community, but is that the ownership of the city to make that happen? Now, I see us as a contributor, but if I had to tie something more tangible to it, I'd say, it's our responsibility to make sure that the housing that people live in is safe and decent housing. And I do think that I've been a part of organizations that have had goals for ownership levels. I think that's an important thing to have. But part of our process has to be, what can we own as a organization in order to be accountable to it? And I do think that's important. I appreciate that Commissioner Slaby mentioned that, because I think I can get into not just home ownership levels, but equity in home ownership levels and how that factors in. And that is a lot of data to try to pull in, but yes.
I think, a good example is like, we're talking about like how we can move the needle.
Yeah.
So, one of the things I've heard from people, especially smaller developers, is that sometimes it doesn't feel like it moves at the speed it needs to move. Or, there might not be adequate resources when it comes to approving things or signing off on things in their projects and whatnot. And, I think I think that is an example of something where you could more broadly set a goal of saying, maybe it's that we're setting a benchmark of satisfaction now, and continuing to monitor that to say, are we becoming more easy to plug into, using a term of Commissioner Slaby, to move those things more efficiently, because if you're moving it more efficiently, if people are more satisfied to work with us, they're more apt to say, hey, I want to come and do a development in your community. That means that's creating more of that housing. It means it's creating that ability to accomplish that project a year sooner, so that you're getting those people in those units a year sooner, which is accomplishing those goals. And I see that's where you're going with it. And so I guess could you talk a little bit more about that, about like how you could use potentially maybe benchmarks that don't exist today, but we're going to seek moving forward. Like so we're saying something like, how satisfied are you with working, or how easy is the city of Kalamazoo to work with and plug into for my development project today, and then keep doing that, and then how that also applies to, just overall plans that already exist and data that already plans with.
Yeah, I love the dialogue. I love the conversation, because, implied in that is, not from you, but that the data might point to there being a problem. Part of what you do is you determine if that's factual, because people might say that they're not having the best experience, and that's factual to them, but there are probably data points that can show this is how long it takes for us to respond or to return your application for a thing, or to review your plans, and we can get into that level of detail. I also like the data from perception. So if we do have survey tools where we can ask people how they perceive our development process and weigh changes in that, absolutely. Those are tools that we can use to set a standard or a benchmark and work from that.
So maybe that's a way, in terms of like what you're talking about, if you're feeling like you don't necessarily have, like if there's something that we have not maybe thought to measure or are not measuring now, it doesn't mean it couldn't start now and moving forward. So it's like, now is our baseline, and once we know where that is, then that could be the basis of which we continue to assess moving forward.
Yeah, a good measure is a good measure. I mean, we have to have the ability to see whether or not we're meeting it. So I think there's a couple of schools of thoughts. I like the idea of saying, even if we can't put the data forward today, this is the best way to measure our effectiveness. Mm-hmm. And then you start to look at ways to get there, where you have the data that gives you the ability to return those results or those measures. I don't throw out good measurement tools because we can't do it today. Yeah. I think that's part of this conversation about, good, high functioning city operations, is if I need to tell you an answer and I can't tell you because I don't have the tools in our data or our process to give it to you, I have to tell you I need something to get that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's an important part of this conversation.
Yeah. I think for me, it's that I think that there's a lot of people that work really hard and do great work. Yes. I think that we as an institution do a lot of responding. And I think that operational effectiveness not only can help us set us on that course of like examining and evaluating ourselves effectively, but also can set on that mindset of continuous operational excellence and improvement. And the other thing I'll share, and I'll shut my mouth after this one, but I really hope, in terms of like as we're talking about those like higher level goals, that they're ambitious. I'll use the example I think I shared with you going back, but like one of the things that's kind of bothered me is about hey, we're going to reduce homicides by 25%. Well, tell that to the 25% that's included your child that was just killed in gun violence. Mm-hmm. I know it's lofty, but I do believe as a community, like, we can get to zero. There is a way to get to zero. And I genuinely believe that when you tell people that you're aiming for something higher, that you can be better with that, you might not get to perfect, but you'll get a hell of a lot closer to perfect than you would have if you just settle for mediocrity. And I think, like, for me, what I would love to see is that ability to aim higher in each of those marks, to say that we can be the best, we can do hard things. And I think that's so motivating when you have something that you can like look to, that's like, to your point, that North Star that says we can be the first community that said we got to zero in gun violence. We can be a community that is reversing the tide on rental prices because we're creating so much capacity in stock that we're doing what Austin and San Francisco have been able to accomplish. Those kind of things. So I don't know, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Commissioner Pato. Commissioner Slaby.
Yeah, well, I wanted to go to an earlier point, and then I'll follow up on Chris's thing, is that, I'm just trying to have a dialogue with you guys. So I don't know if it should be 10% or 20%. I also don't know if it should be homeownership. So I really hope that we don't get stuck on some words that can be replaced, because whether we do homeownership rates or we do safety of buildings, I'm still talking about SMART goals. So just because we decide homeownership isn't relevant to our operations, great. But that doesn't mean we throw away this whole concept and framework of SMART goals, because there's so many other things like safety and safe conditions of housing that we can apply a SMART framework to. I'm just trying to make sure that our staff can do what they need to do on a regular basis, that the commission, all of us are on the same page, no matter who gets in these seats, election cycle to election cycle over the next 10 years, understand what we've put in place to invest in over the next 10 years, and that the community also feels like we are focused on the things that they have prioritized at the time of approval for master plan. So if you could just indulge with me on one example, and please, I'm not suggesting that this has to be the thing that goes in the plan, but we have this goal, and it is for the environment. And it says, advance a healthy and resilient environment that sustains the community today and for generations to come. That's a lot. I don't even know where to begin to think about what that looks like over the next 10 years. So I could be somebody that gets hired by the city and start working for the city, and every day I think, I'm gonna we got a goal of operational strategy, right? Of planting 2 million trees. So I'm in every day planting 2 million, trying to get to 2 million trees. Well, somebody steps down from the commission, we appoint somebody, they say, trees? I don't care about trees. I want us to increase the bee population. Now all of a sudden, this person that was hired to plant trees has to figure out what bees are. Or when the community, because something comes up, and I think that's totally fair, things emerge, comes up and says, oh no, we want to be the bird capital of the world. Forget the trees, forget the bees. We need to help the birds, okay? Then all of a sudden, commissioners are running around saying, our constituents are saying, we need to help the birds. And now the person that was originally hired to do the trees and now just got a degree in bees is talking about, we gotta replace all the windows in the city for the birds, okay? That's what happens. That's what I've experienced as a city staff. This is what I experience as a commissioner when constituents come up to me. And, I'm also a resident myself, so I fluctuate on the things that I think we should focus on when I'm driving on the street, when I'm trying to, find a shop downtown, right? Okay. So let's say we set up a SMART goal, and our SMART goal, instead of advance a healthy and resilient environment that sustains the community today and for generations to come, because it's not a SMART goal, and our SMART goal is, please, do not hold me to the SMART goal, just for the sake of this conversation, is by 2035, the city is going to reduce carbon emissions by 50%. Now, we've set that as a goal. It's a high goal that we're aiming towards. Maybe we don't end up being perfect and getting down to 50%. Cool, but we have 10 years to figure out our investment, what that looks like to be able to meet that goal. That's the strategic goal at the top. That's what we want to see as part of making that vision happen. So now it's the city manager, his office, and the staff's job to figure out how we actually do that. And that's where their operational strategies come into play. So they can decide, you know what, in order to reduce the carbon emissions by 2035 by 50%, we're gonna plant 2 million trees. I don't have anything to say to that. As long as you think that that can hit our goal of 50% carbon emission reduction, go at it. Great. You hire somebody, they know they're coming in every day, going towards that goal, planting 2 million trees. Now, let's say that person is doing that and they're realizing, these trees are dying, or something happened, right? Where they realize that actually is not gonna reach, that's not gonna hit the goal that the city set. They have the agency, they can feel empowered to go to their director and say, listen, we doing these trees, it ain't working. But I just got a $20 million grant that can help us convert our fleet 80% electric. Well, that's operational. So to me as a commissioner, I can't speak for, I guess, all my colleagues, but the way I understand how a governing body should operate, that's for the city manager to work with his team to figure out, you know what, the trees ain't working, we gotta shift to converting our fleet to 80% electric in order for us to meet that strategic goal that they had set, which was a 50% carbon emission reduction. And to me, whether it's about the trees or the bees or the cars, when they come to us and report to us on an annual basis on what they've done towards the goal that we set strategically at the top, all that matters to me is if we made progress. Again, I don't care if it's because we planted trees or because we converted our fleet. But they made progress at the strategic goal that we made at the top, right? So to me, that allows staff to feel comfortable and confident in the work that they're doing, and that what they think is going to happen, what they think is best, they can provide that to their supervisors, to the city manager, to figure out, again, what's gonna help us reach the strategic goal at the top. So it allows us to stop getting in the weeds with them operationally. It allows staff to feel supported in the work that they're doing, because ultimately we're just trying to reach that strategic goal. And then for the community, when they come and tell us we gotta do the bats and the cats and the trees and the dogs, we can say, hey, listen, unless there's a meteor shower, we all spent 18 months talking about the most important thing is flooding. So when we have a goal about flooding, we are going to do that, and we're gonna make that investment there, and the operational strategies the city decides to do is gonna be a flooding. Or we decided it's gonna be carbon emission reduction, we're doing strategies that are related to that. And so we love the bee thing, but let's connect you to a community partner that can talk about the bee thing. But right now, we got a lot of time, a lot of work in a very little time. 10 years is really not a lot for us to make a dent in that goal that we set at the top. And that's, again, why I think applying that SMART goal framework is so important to ensure that we have effective city operations where we can start to restore trust among the community members and provide clarity on the direction that we have to staff.
Thank you, Commissioner Slaby. Other thoughts or questions for this conversation? Commissioner Bradle.
I think it's helpful to hear that clarity of where you're coming from, and Manager Hankins, I'm hoping to plug you in on this as well. The thing that I think
I'm going to grab this water.
Yeah. So like the one thing that when you have these higher level broad goals is, let's say hypothetically we went with the example of saying, hey, we're going to do something unprecedented, we're going to cut emissions by 50%, and that fits the environmental goal, right?
We are going to do that in 2028, by the way.
Exactly. But the example I want to give about that is the reason that you have the higher level and more broad goal is because there is vastly more that we have to accomplish as a city than just cutting the carbon emissions. We want to focus on, simultaneously, we have to do many things as a city. We don't have the luxury to just say we want to just focus on carbon emissions. Very important, but we also recognize that there are air quality concerns of residents that we need to focus on. We recognize that there are certain neighborhoods that disproportionately have life expectancies that are significantly smaller than other neighborhoods in the city of Kalamazoo. We recognize that, I'm just like giving that example where the value in having a larger, broader goal is that my understanding of how this next step is going to work is that we could have identified any bigger, broader goals of those 8, but we chose these ones, and the community chose these ones. But where the value to me is where it's going to come next is that recognizing the things that we're hearing and listening to the community, there should be a SMART goal that we hopefully see that says we're going to do blank to reduce or to improve air quality in the north and east side. We're going to reduce carbon emissions by 70% by 2030. And so to me, that is where I'm going to be looking to see, hey, are we seeing these tangible things that we know the community is saying that accomplishes this larger, broader goal? And so, like, I don't think you're wrong at all. I think you're 100% spot on. I think it's just the way that it translates is that if you are too specific in a broad goal, even if it is a heavy lift, hey, we're going to do this big thing, then you're missing out on these other things we're hearing from community that we also simultaneously have to accomplish. And so like for me, where I'm looking for, and I'm not saying this to diminish anything you're saying because it's a very valid and important point, but I also feel like, to me, what I'm going to be looking for is the proof in the pudding after that staff retreats happen to see, are there smart goals that are environmental impact that we've heard from community that we know we need to see big things happen with, you know, and then that gives those cues for us to say 5 years out, hey, has air quality improved by whatever measure we should be seeing by this point? Our carbon emissions going down 25% on target for that. And again, like to your point, I mean, we can't be everything to everybody, but you know, like we're probably not going to see a goal about like spade and neutering cats and dogs. Like, you know, there's things that a community have said to us that are critically important that we need to accomplish. And like for me, where I'm going to be looking for those things are in that SMART goal development phase, where I can start to believe that these 8 things can be really prioritized for us as a community. So I mean, that's what I am understanding and looking for. But I want to process that with y'all and hear what you have to say to Manager Hankins.
No, I think the good part of this conversation is neither of you are wrong. This is exactly what we want, the high-level goals. We need the flexibility to not be so narrow, because if we do that, now we're basically having operational goals. Some of the goals that might be more specific are already in plans that we might need to elevate. They might be embedded in different plans that we've already developed. And so we may need to elevate those so that they become more prominent and you can see those. What if I just posed the possibility of, after our retreat, we're going to come back to you with SMART goals. If in the process of looking at what we come back to you, you can give us a lot of information. You could say to me, you know, we think you missed the opportunity to have a more specific goal around subject A. Okay, we can go back with that and give you that. Or you might look at those SMART goals and say, hey, now that we see what you actually are putting forth, this could be elevated as a higher level goal that we'd like to see. That's an umbrella of those things that you've talked about. That's a possibility. I want you to know that we're not coming to you saying it's baked. We're going to come to you and say, here it is, from what we've heard you say and our understanding of what the community has been saying to us as staff, here's where we think we hit the mark that we heard from you. And if you want to shift any of that to add more SMART elements to it, even at the higher level, that's, of course, in your purview to do that.
Thanks, Manager Hankins. Just as anyone who hasn't been speaking much want to take advantage of this opportunity? All right, Commissioner Slaby.
I totally agree. I think it shouldn't be specific, which is why I wouldn't want us to set a goal of by 2035 we're planting 2 million trees at the top. That's way too specific. To me, and again, I'm not suggesting that's carbon emissions, but reducing carbon emissions by 50% is pretty broad. I mean, I went from planting trees as an operational strategy to converting an internal fleet to 80% electric. So, I mean, I would think that if we set a goal, even if it is SMART, it allows cities, if we did 50%, you're not going to meet it just by doing one strategy, even if it's 2 million trees. They're going to have to employ multiple different strategies that would, I would think, encompass a lot of the things that came up from people, right, in order for us to accomplish the goal itself. So, I mean, I think that it is so important for us to have a SMART goal at the top to be able to then actually help guide the development of these SMART goals operationally. The only thing is I don't think we can have a productive enough conversation here amongst the commissioners simply because we don't have the existing conditions. So I can't really tell you what truly could be a priority because I don't have the baselines. We weren't presented that to us, which I think is a big, huge missing gap in our ability to set the tone as a commission.
Other thoughts, commissioners? So as we begin to wrap this up and take advantage of having a little break before our meeting starts at 7, I just want to see, I know we haven't all weighed in on this necessarily, I think it's a great conversation. I appreciate all the very involved interest in it and the strong feelings about it. I think that's super important. So I'm just trying to come out with like a little takeaway for all of us here instead of just, having the takeaway be, okay, we got another meeting, so we're going to take a break. So related to that, I guess I would agree that it's a good idea to have baselines and to know what is the current status of the city and the people that live here. So I will suggest, because there's all kinds of things around that, so I will suggest that maybe each one of us who cares about baselines thinks about what would be something I would like to know what the baseline is. And maybe we can just send those ideas into the city manager. What are things that are important? 1, 10, whatever you think are things, and let's keep in mind while we do that, things that are likely to have data sets, that we could obtain somewhere without having to, start from nothing, I guess. And I'm sure that those exist out there. So maybe just some ideas about that. I think it's very helpful when you're looking at improvements to identify where are we at, right? So I don't think there's anything wrong with that idea. I think that's a positive idea. So maybe each of us could do that. Something to be helpful for me on this conversation, and I kind of understand, I think you're coming to the same point, Commissioner Pradel, Commissioner Slaby, but we're just kind of talking about where in this process we're, insinuating, infusing that SMART goal piece. And I understand what you're suggesting in terms of it needs to be here, not in the second tier necessarily, because that's what helps define these goals. On the other hand, of course, then there's part of our job outside of all this, even though we didn't rank it necessarily, was getting our streets plowed, within a certain period of time and things like that, just our ongoing kind of work that we do. So we got a lot of plates we have to keep spinning. So I guess what would be helpful for me, Commissioner Slaby, and I know you threw out a couple examples and said, don't look at those too closely, those are just examples. Fair enough. But along those lines, a goal that is at once inclusive enough and yet specific enough to be a kind of a goal that might be, incorporated in some of these. I think that would be helpful for me just to actually see some real examples. And I don't think we can settle all that just now, but a few of those ideas that could just be pushed out and then shared would be helpful for me, and I think help kind of clarify that conversation for me anyway. Are you open to that? Okay, I appreciate that. Any other thoughts from commissioners as far as takeaways for us here at this point? Okay. Yeah, Commissioner Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. And I want to remind us as a body, all the work that we do right now and that we'll continue doing is inconsistent. And, you have a very strong presence and very confident, and yet we still have to keep this work moving. And I'm not talking about moving in urgency. I'm just saying, like, together we have to come to a conclusion, and we might not always agree, but we still have to make sure that the work is getting done. So I don't want us to get stuck. And right now, I feel stuck. And so I just had to put that out there so I can get it out of my brain. We got work to do. We're doing good work. It all sounded the same to me, just with a different lens. So I want to just, yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Hoffman. And so back to this here. If we're okay, I think at this point, we have our work for this year, which we still need to pay attention to. It's going on right now in 2026. This strategy is all around building a budget for 2027. So we have some time as we're doing this. Yeah, it'll all rush up and the time will pass quickly. But, luckily we're talking about it now here, at least, relatively early in this calendar year as we're looking for 27. So I think we'll have an opportunity to process more as we're talking about 27. Hopefully feel like we're not stuck, that we're working. And I guess that just reminds me also, as we're doing this future work, is that, we've got everyday things that we're doing now that we also need to look at. how effective are we being in 2026 and how that's working out and what our ongoing input is going to be for that. So if we're okay with this for the Committee of the Whole for now, are we? Oh, okay. So I just want to say thank you.
Yes.
Manager Hankins, I appreciate it very much, and your team for helping with all this. And it's an evolving process, and I know that we are going to be doing this together. So I appreciate how the team approach you have to getting this work done. So thank you so much. Commissioners, now is an opportunity for commissioner comments for this meeting. Are there any commissioner comments for this meeting? Okay, if there are none, just a reminder for anyone that's watching or already here in the chambers, we've got some early arrivers here. Good to see you. That there's also a commissioner comment period, which will happen at the end of our business meeting, which starts at 7 o'clock. We are adjourned.
I think that was a good takeaway. Thank you so much.